Soleiman Faqiri's family is finally going to get the inquest they've been fighting for. It's been nearly 7 years since Mr. Faqiri died, shackled, bruised, and face down at an Ontario jail. He'd had an altercation with guards while waiting for a spot at a mental health facility where he could be assessed for what a pathologist later found to be worsening schizophrenia. The same pathologist found that the injuries Mr. Faqiri suffered in that altercation, along with the restraint and the position he was placed in, all combined to cause his death. None of the guards have ever been charged, but now Ontario's chief coroner has announced an inquest into Soleiman Faqiri's death. It's set to start this November. Yosef Faqiri is Soleiman Faqiri's brother. We reached him in Toronto.
Yosef, you've been fighting for this inquest for a long time. So how would you describe what the inquest means to you and your family?
You know, Neil, it means the world in the sense that for the first time since 7 years since this tragic murder and beating death, there's an opportunity for my family, and just as important for Ontarians and Canadians at large, to be able to get transparency into his death. We still don't have most of the questions into Soleiman's death, Neil, and so this is why it was so important for this inquest to be announced and for it to take place.
Our CBC News colleague Shanifa Nasser, as you know, has done a lot of work on your brother's story, and in her reporting, we know that Ontario's chief pathologist determined your brother's death was caused by a combination of the injuries he sustained in that struggle with guards, being restrained in a face-down position. Beyond that finding from Ontario's chief pathologist, what are those unanswered questions that you want answers to?
Yeah, and it's so important that this question, Neil, because what's really become elusive in this case is a lack of accountability and a lack of transparency. Now, let's talk about these aspects. One, why was Soleiman never transferred to a hospital? 3 days before his murder, my family, my father and I made arrangements for Soleiman to be transferred to a hospital. A judge ordered him to be transferred to a hospital. Why weren't we able to see him in the 4 times that we went to the Central East Correctional Center in Lindsay? What happened to Soleiman in those 11 days? It's as if he was thrown in a black hole to never be seen again. And this is why, Neil, we want to make sure that there's an opportunity for us to get those answers. We want to know what took place in that internal investigation that the Ministry of Community Safety Correctional Services did. Now they're Solicitor General, but what happened? And so we want to know the answers to those questions. And there's many other questions, but these are the fundamental questions that we're hoping to get answers to.
Police and prosecutors, as you know, have looked at this case at least 3 times now, but they've never laid charges against any of the guards involved. So what are you hoping might happen after this inquest?
I'm hoping that Ontarians and Canadians can see what happens to someone who suffers from mental illness at the hands of the correctional system. I'm hoping that Canadians and Ontarians can see that people with mental illness, it's as if it's a death sentence for them. I'm hoping for Ontarians and Canadians to see that Soleiman's story is a story that could have happened to anyone else, and that the system has a double standard. And finally, I'm hoping to see for Ontarians and Canadians that the correctional system is decayed, that the system needs to be reformed, that the system operates away from scrutiny and transparency, and that Soleiman's story is an opportunity for us to make a difference, so that another brother, another sister, another mother does not go through what my family has gone through, Neil.
So sorry for your loss, Yusuf. When you say double standard, what is that double standard in your view?
Absolutely. I mean, we look at Soleiman's case. It's a compelling evidence as to the fact that Soleiman lost his life at the hands of the correctional officers. You already articulated that the chief pathologist links the guard's actions into his death. There's also 50 bruises that was given by the guards that the coroner's report articulated. Both his legs and his hands were tied by the guards. There was a spit hurt that the ministry admitted, one of the ministry employees admitted that they did not follow the policy. There's an eyewitness that the OPP called credible. All of these evidence should be led to criminal charges against the guards into Soli's death. But it seems that law enforcement, this is where the double standard, Neil, comes in, is that law enforcement has one standard for itself and then one standard for the rest of us Canadians and Ontarians. Soli didn't just roll over and die. He was alive before that incident and he's dead after. And this is a question that we also have to be alarmed by. 3 police investigations. We don't know what they did in their investigations, and they all came to the same conclusion. And the most recent one, the police articulated that there was not compelling evidence into pressing charges into Soleiman's beating death.
Anyone who has siblings, let alone younger ones, knows, the feeling of wanting to protect, your little brother or your little sister. How are you dealing with that all of these years later?
The pain is fresh. Soli and I were 18 months apart. I was his oldest brother. I love him. I miss his smile. I miss his gifted mind. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about him. And at the end of the day, I'm the oldest brother that's looking to protect my brother. And, me fighting all these years is, in my small way, is trying to honor him because I know he deserved better. And I know others who suffer from mental illness deserve better, Neil.
What do you want people to know about who your brother was?
Soleiman was a gifted mind. He was an intellectual. He was a star athlete, but more importantly, he was a cherished brother, a cherished son, an incredible uncle. And out of all that, he was a human being that had a story to tell. And that promise and that story was cut short at the hands of the correctional system. And there's not a day that goes by that we don't miss Soleiman, but we hope that this tragedy that befell my family will not fall another family, and that Soli's tragedy can serve as a catalyst for profound systemic change within the correctional system. And I want everybody to know that my brother was someone that mattered, just like other Canadians and Ontarians who suffer from mental illness matter.
Yusuf, I hope you and your family get the answers you're looking for. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Neil. You have a great day.
Yosef Faqiri is the brother of the late Soleiman Faqiri. We reached him in Toronto.